Welcome back to our lecture. And in this video lecture, we will try to learn how we can create chart using the data that we have created in the previous video. So before we begin, let's first discuss why do we need to learn chart. So basically, chart enables us to see the big picture of the data, which makes it easy for us to compare multiple sets of data visually. So here's an example of a chart. So we have here the visual representation of our data containing the bars, and we have the chart title and the category telling us what particular item belongs to a group, and the series names. We will try to create a chart using the data in our previous exercise. Okay, so let's start. So this was the data that we have created in our previous video lecture. And what we'll be doing here is we are going to create a chart so that we'll be able to see the visual representation of this data. So we have two ways in creating a chart. The first one is by manual selection, and the second one is the group selection of data. All right, so let's start with the manual selection of data. Okay, so the first thing is we have to resize first our worksheet so that we can see everything in our screen. Okay, so let's go to the insert tab and then go to the charts. Here is the chart, and then we will use the clustered column under the 2D column. So let's select this one, and then we will place it somewhere right here. Okay, then while our chart is selected, right click on it and then select data. Okay, then we are not going to define any chart data range, so let's just set this to empty, and then we have to remove this. So make sure that both of these items of these white boxes here are empty. So next is we have to add legend. Okay, so let's click the legend, add legend, then let's add the series name. So here we are going to select these cells or this cell with the value of with the series value of this one, and then let's click OK. And then at the right side of this data source dialog, let's choose the edit, and then the axis label range will be selecting the January, February, and March. And then let's click OK. All right. So we are now through with water. The next is we are going to create the chart for electricity. So let's add again a legend. So add legend entries, and then series name. Let's select the electricity, and then series values. Make sure to select the entire row from January to March. We will not be including the total. Here you go. And then click OK. Then let's modify. While our electricity is selected, take note that the water, we have already set the horizontal category axis labels for water. Now we will be modifying the horizontal category axis label for electricity. So let's click edit, and then let's use the labels at the top, the January up to March. Okay, and then click OK. We will be doing the same thing for the rest of the expenses. So now let's continue with the wages. Let's add here wages for the series name, and then select the entire row from January to March, then click OK, then change the horizontal axis labels, edit, select January to March at the top, click OK, and then let's go back to the legend entries, add again. The next one is the rent, and then for the series values, let's select the row near to wages from January to March, and then click OK. Let's go back to our horizontal axis while the rent is selected, and then edit, then select the January to March, OK, So everything is now in place. So let's continue. Let's go ahead and move to supplies. So add legend entries again, then select the supplies while the series name is selected. So the first supply is food, and then the series values are the cells next to the food cell. Okay, and then click OK. And then while the food legend is selected, let's go to our horizontal axis labels and then select the first item, click edit, and then select January to March, click OK. Then the last one will be the office. So let's click add legend again. Under series name, let's select the office and then series values, select the entire row from January to March, then click OK. Now let's go to the horizontal axis labels, click edit, then select January to March, then click OK. Okay, so let's check if everything is okay. So for water, we have January, February, March. That's good. Electricity, January, February to March. That's good. Wages, rent, food, office. All right. Since everything is already in set, let's click OK. So this is not the complete chart, but we need to add a chart title. So to add a chart title, we select the chart, this one. You will notice that the chart is selected if there are the circle handles at the edges of the chart. So meaning your chart is already selected. And then go to your chart design. And then while on the tab of the chart design, you have here the add chart element. So click this and then select chart title and then select above chart. You can see that there's a label showing the chart title. So we can change this one by highlighting the label and then renaming it to expenses. And then we can as well add a series for us to check what data that this yellow bar represents, this gray, and so on. So we can add that, the series labels from the chart design. No, while the chart is selected, go to the chart design, select add chart element, and then go to the legend, and then select right. And there you go. So the blue bar represents water, and the orange represents electricity, and so on. Okay, so the beauty of having a chart is that whenever you change the value from your data, let's say we want to change our wages for January to be 50,000, right away you can immediately see the changes from our computations and from our chart. So if we are going to put back it again, so it will be automatically reflected in our chart. So 150,000, and there you go. Okay, so now we're through with the first way of doing our chart, so the manual selection of data. So this time, let's try doing the second way of creating a chart, the group selection of data. But before we move to that, let's try to fix first some minor issues in our chart, because as you can see, the orange here represents the rent, and the gray here represents the wages, and they are having the same values. So it seems that there are some anomaly on this chart. So let's try to fix this first. So let's select the orange, which refers to rent, and let's see if we correctly selected the rows for rent. And it seems that our rent points to the row for wages. Okay, so we have to fix this one. So let's click this, and once the mouse pointer has changed to crossed arrow, so you can click this and drag this to change the location or the position of the series values. All right, so there you go, and this is the correct value for our rent, and we're done. Okay. All right. So we are through with our first chart. Now let's try using the second way, the group selection of data. Okay. So let's resize our chart and move it somewhere at the top so we can fit the next chart that we will be doing. Okay. So what we will do now is to select the entire chart, but we will be deselecting some portion of it that we don't need for our chart. So what are those cells? So we don't need the title for the moment and those cells that do not contain values, just like the utilities and the supplies. Okay. So let's select everything and let's start deselecting the cells that we don't need for our chart. To deselect, let's hold down the control key and let's click the cells that we don't need for our chart. The ABC company, we don't need this one. The expenses, we don't need that one. Including this, we don't need this. And we don't need the utilities. Okay. We don't need the total. And we don't need the food supplies. All right. So there you go. So we have to include the January. Okay. So we have already deselected the cells that we don't need for our chart. And what we have selected is only those cells that are useful for our chart. So now let's move to the Insert tab and then go to our chart command group and then select the clustered column under the 2D column and then click this chart. All right, so there you go. We have now this this chart, which is very much similar to our previous chart. So, but there are some minor issues with this chart because it includes the February as our series label. So what we need is that the month should be placed at the bottom of our chart and the expenses are placed at the right side. So let's try to fix these issues. Okay. So right click on the chart, select data, and then as you notice, as we select the legend entries, it shows 1, 2, 3, which supposedly to be month. Okay. So let's select this one, select here, edit, and then choose this. Okay. And then click OK. Same goes with here, 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 and perhaps everything is now okay, except for the last item. So we have to remove this one. All right. And then let's click OK. All right. So in our second chart, we can notice that the food is represented by blue, whereas in our first chart, the water is represented by blue. So um, it is the MS Excel who decided to choose what kind of color for a particular series label. But you can actually change this one if you wanted to. Okay, if you wanted to change this, so just select the chart, select the bar, and then from the chart design, you can change the colors right here. Okay, so any colors you wanted, so just choose your preferred color. Okay, but for now, I will be sticking to this style so that we can immediately finish our chart design. Okay, so at the bottom, here is the PHP and then no value. It represents the zero and then followed by the succeeding numbers in our expenses. And what we have now is that the chart title, we don't have a correct label for our chart title. So what we can do here is just to copy and paste this, copy, and then place this right here. And there you have it. We have now successfully completed our chart using two different approach. Okay. The first one is by using manual selection and the second one is by using group selection. Okay. So let's change the size of our worksheet so that we can see everything. So by looking into this chart, we can immediately say that wages, no wages, has the highest amount among the rest. Same goes with here, our first chart, since they came from the Same data, the wages is the highest among the expenses. Okay, so that ends our lecture for creating a chart, and see you in the next videos.